fill in the blank. You're not getting any younger, so
start it. Just start it. Don't quit your job until, you have to. Start the side hustle, start the incubation period. As soon as you get that calling, act on it in some way, because it's all about intention.
Hey you! Yes, you! Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast, a podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives for a good reason, to make it count. I'm your host, Jenn Glantz, and every week I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? Hey, any youngers, it's me, Jenn Glantz. Welcome back to a brand new episode. This episode is all about the topic of getting rid of stuff. I know this has been such a huge trend, which is get rid of things in your closet, in your life, in your living space that you just don't need anymore. Getting rid of stuff is my favorite thing to do. I know I've talked about this before, but over a year and a half ago, my boyfriend and I, we sold almost everything that we owned. We gave it away, we sold it, and we've been traveling, living in new cities for the past year and a half, not having a physical location of our own to live in. Because of that, I got really good at looking at things I don't need anymore and deciding to give them away. And this is something that I try to do every couple of months, is just go through my belongings. Now I don't have as many as I used to, and look at what I have and say, do I need this? Am I going to wear this? And if not, donate it, give it away. Sell it, whatever it takes to get it out of your life to create space. And I really do think in your living situation, space is good. Having a little bit of emptiness allows creativity to spark. Having a little bit of emptiness allows you to be able to take more deep breaths. Going through your clutter and eliminating it is one of the best feelings in the world. And that is what we're talking about on today's show. Our guest is Jenn Mapp Bressan, and she is a wonderful expert in figuring out your own personal style, doing capsule wardrobes, and also just looking at everything you have and figuring out how to clean up your mess, give away things you're not going to wear, and truly help you define your fashion with as little pieces of clothing as possible. I am so excited to have her on the show today. And as usual, if you like what you hear, and I really hope you do, if you could drop us an iTunes review, takes 15 seconds or less, oh my God, that would mean the world. It helps more people find the show, and of course, it helps me book better and better guests for you, just like today's guest, Jenn. And also, another reminder, hey, come hang out with us in the secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group. There are so many incredible people in there. I feel like I just have close to 2,000 best friends being there for me on a weekly basis, and it's amazing. Hope to see you there. I read before that you used to be a shopaholic and that your closet was 3 rooms. Is that for real?
Yes, definitely for real. And as now being a professional stylist and wardrobe coach and spending so much time in other women's closets, I'm not the only one.
No, you definitely aren't. In fact, I know that there's people out there who will hear that and say, yeah, what's wrong with that? You know, I have 3 rooms. I have closets all over my house stuffed with clothes. But back then, did you realize, oh my God, I have so much? Or did it just become part of your life?
Oh, I realized it, and it brought me great satisfaction at the time. I've always been I don't really like this term. It sounds cheesy, but I've always been a fashionista. I've always been obsessed with style. And at that point in my life, I equated success with being able to buy all of the clothes.
Yeah. Did you find yourself, and I know that I do this, when I'm stressed out, I'm having a bad day, one of my favorite things to do is just walk around a clothing store. And I always say, I'm not going to buy anything, I'm just going to go there and walk around. But did you find yourself doing that when you were successful in a business or just needed a little bit of therapy? Did you find yourself just going, walking around, and then just buying whatever you wanted?
Absolutely. And even before I was quote unquote successful and had a healthy amount of disposable income, I grew up with my mom taking us to TJ Maxx as a hobby, right?
Same here. Yep.
Right. So even before I was able to shop everywhere that I wanted to shop, I've been thrifting, gifting, cobbling together outfits in any way that I could from go. I actually got my first job as a paper girl when I was 11 years old because I was a child of the 90s and I really wanted a pair of red suede Champion high tops.
Yes.
The first time. So when I see them now in stores it just cracks me up. But I got a job because I wanted shoes and my father made it very clear that he was not going to buy them. So I always have equated working with fashion independence, if you will. So back to your original question, I loved shopping. I loved clothes. I shopped with whatever my budget was at the time. Almost all of my income I always spent it on clothes.
Even when you were buying a lot of clothes and you did have 3 rooms worth of belongings, did you ever notice any habits like wearing the same things over and over again? Or did you really, even back then when you had all of those pieces, did you wear all of them?
I don't think any of us do. I do wear all of my clothes now, but so much of that habit was impulse shopping. So I would not be shopping for anything in particular. I'd just be shopping for interesting things and deals and finds. And when you go into it with that strategy, what you end up doing is collecting a wardrobe full of clothes that you never wear because you're not mindfully adding staple pieces, or you're not asking yourself, does this match 5 other things in my closet? So I would have these, great impact items. I'm thinking of this one top in particular. It was Prada, and I got it at TJ Maxx, and I was so proud of that find, and it matched nothing at all. So I would just look at it, be like, oh, one day there will be an occasion for wearing this beautiful Prada top that I bought solely because it was Prada and it was there. So to answer your question, no, I've always been incredibly creative and very comfortable mishmashing seemingly unrelated garments into an outfit. So I think I wore more of my wardrobe than the typical woman who has as many clothes, but I absolutely wore about 30% of it on a day-to-day basis.
I can completely understand that, and I'm looking right now at some of my belongings that still have tags on them. Just like you said, they were interesting, weird pieces I bought because they looked cool and they match nothing. It's like I'm also very creative, but they're these tops that I don't have any possible bottoms for, and they just sit there, and it's such a huge regret staring at clothes with tags on them because that equates to money that could be so many other places, right?
Right. And, it's funny that you bring up the tag situation. When I work with a client and we do the first part of my process, which is the ruthless wardrobe edit, I laser focus on 5 specific categories. And one of them is quote unquote, but it has tags. And I say it in those quotes because that's what my clients typically say to me when I say, okay, we're going to deal with this stuff first. But why it has tags? If it has tags, it means that you're not wearing it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's typically an impulse purchase, and it has tags for the most part because you bought it, you realize that it fits funny, it doesn't feel great when you wear it, it matches nothing, or most commonly, it doesn't reflect what your actual life looks like on a day-to-day basis. So the tags category is one of the first things that we tackle when we ruthlessly edit a closet.
Yeah, it's so true. And, you know, I definitely want to talk more about this because I do find that we have this weird relationship with items that we own. Like, you know, you said that, like, it has tags. You know that it didn't fit you when you bought it, but you kept it. I feel like a lot of that is just us psychologically saying, oh, well, I'm going to lose a couple pounds, or, oh, I'm going to look different in it next time I try it on, or, no, you know, this isn't my style now, but that's what I want it to be in the future. What is going on with our brains that we become so attached to these ideas that we can't look at these items of clothing and say, I don't need that?
Well, there's a funny psychological things that happens with leaving the tags on it. I think that we convince ourselves that it still has monetary value if there's a tag on it. And even if we haven't worn it it is well past the return date. Typically, if something in a closet has tags and we can return it, we return it. But that almost never happens. But for some reason, we leave the tags on because it's a way of telling ourselves, oh, we can get that money back. It's not been used yet. But here's the deal, Jen. You know how they say that a car loses its value the minute that you drive it off the lot? And that's true, but a car is going to serve you because you're driving it every single day. So there is value to the car in your life. There is absolutely no value to a garment after you've purchased it, aside from the value that you can connect to the way that it makes you feel in the garment, right? So even if it has a tag and it says $1,800 and it's an Escada blouse, and I'm thinking about a specific situation, you're not getting that money back. Tip, really, really high end, premier designer, impeccable condition, and Chanel are the what am I trying to say? They are the exceptions to the rule, but clothes are worth pennies on the dollar of what you spent after you take them out of a store. Yeah. So part of the reason that we leave the tags on it is I think that we're telling ourselves that something about reselling it, or I didn't really spend that money because I haven't used it yet, but not true. So what I train my clients to do is to go in to shop mindfully, because I don't want them to have wardrobes of clothes that have no value to anyone.
Yeah, and my clothing, mostly from that store you keep mentioning, TJ Maxx, definitely doesn't have much value. I am a clearance rack shopper. So all of this changed for you when you tore through your closet and you whittled down your belongings to about 40 different items. From there, you started Mapcraft, Tiny Closet, Tons of Style, and you wrote a book called Close the Deal, The Guide for Transformative Personal Style. I love all of this, but I want to go back to the moment where you looked at all of your belongings and said, enough. I don't want this. I don't need this. And you just kept 40 things. How did you do this?
It's a great question. And you summarize it so succinctly, and yet that was a process that took years to get to that point. So backing up a little bit, I was for the 16 years up until this June, last June of 2018, I worked for the same employer. I was the brand manager for a hair care line. Lots of hustle, loved the job for a very long time, and created concept to market a brand that is now generating upwards of $10 million annually at retail. But I said earlier that when I got to the point that I had disposable income, buying clothes equaled success to me. So I dressed like a combination of Carrie Bradshaw and my former boss, Anne, who I totally idolized because she was so successful and so chic and stylish. And that served me for a very long time. And then I got married, and then I had a baby, number one. And then my my compensation structure was rearranged because I was actually making too much money, and they had to stabilize, quote unquote, stabilize my income. I will never forget that quote. I'm like, oh, thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. And I have to pause right there. That when that happened, I knew that I needed to start figuring out what the next phase of my career was.
Yeah, what a crazy thing to say to somebody. I have to stabilize your income. That's
Right. I was
crazy.
28, 29, 30 years old, and apparently making more money than some of the people who had been there for decades because I was earning it. My former boss created a compensation plan that incentivized me on hitting goals. And I'm like, got it, gonna hit the goal. I'm gonna blow the goal out of the water. I don't think anybody actually thought that I was capable of generating as much revenue as I did. So what happened was, I mean, we don't have to go too deep into this, but my former organization, they were an entrepreneurial family-owned business. They brought in the corporate types to really, and this is smart business. You can only go so far with a true entrepreneurial mindset. At some point in the growth of a corporation, you have to bring in, the VPs, the executives, the people from the business world.
Sure.
And I was part of that process. Stabilizing my income was one of the areas where they saw that they could, do whatever they needed to do. But at that point, that happened. And then at the same time, the details of my life shifted. So, and this is something that I find with almost all of my clients. I typically don't have clients that are in their 20s or even in their early 30s. You really have to experience a lifestyle change, like a dramatic lifestyle change, to get to the point that you look at your closet and say, this is not serving me anymore. Right.
Yeah.
So for me, it was several different circumstances, but the catalyst, I bought a house. We bought a house after my first child was born, and it was great. We lived outside of Washington, D.C. So it was a, $500,000, 1,000 square foot starter home. And it felt like it was a great investment, but it felt like, oh, this is perfect. 1,000 square feet, cozy. That worked until I got pregnant with my second child. And at that point, I had built an Alpha Container Store closet system into the wall of our laundry room to contain my wardrobe. And even then, it was spilling over into other closets. And we found a new house to move in that was bigger, but the closets were smaller. And I was on Pinterest trying to find a way to rationalize all of these clothes. That's a retail term, rationalize inventory. I was trying to find a way to force a square peg in a round hole with this massive wardrobe and nowhere to put it. So I was on Pinterest researching interesting, storage solutions. Like, how can I configure these new closets to fit all of these garments? And I came across this one picture, and everything about this picture spoke to me. It was a curated, minimalist, elegant wardrobe. It was a closet. There were about 40 garments in the closet, maybe even less. Every one of the garments matched, but coordinated. It was all muted colors. There was like a little Chanel bag on top, 5 pairs of shoes lined up on the bottom, and totally French minimalist. And I just heard these angels sing in my head. I'm like, this is what I want my life to look like. And I clicked through the picture and found an article on Capsule Wardrobes. And this is how I discovered this concept. And it's not a new concept. I wrote about the history of a capsule wardrobe in my book. It was actually a term that was coined in the mid-70s by a French boutique owner. And it was the idea, she opened a boutique to cater specifically to women in the workforce, which was a new concept at the time. And her philosophy was that you do not need all the clothes. You need a very edited, intentional assortment of the right garments that coordinated, could be mixed and matched with each other and were appropriate for the workplace. Well, that's how it started. And then the capsule wardrobe type of culture has evolved to reflect all different lifestyles. But the idea that I didn't have to hold on to all of these clothes, and in fact, I was only wearing 30 to 40 garments at any given time, every light bulb went off in my head. And I want to pause really quick and go back a little bit, Jen. So this is a part because I jumped over a very important part.
Sure.
So the catalyst was the move, but the catalyst to the move, I had my second baby. She was 6 months old. I was back at work full time. I was pumping full time, nursing all night, sleeping never, and this wardrobe that used to bring me great joy and great inspiration and represented so many achievements and accomplishments in my life, all of a sudden was serving me no more than the piles of unfolded laundry in baskets all over my house.
Yeah, I can totally imagine what that would feel like and look like when you're probably at that point in your life, the last thing you cared about was how do I go through, hundreds of items of clothing and put together an outfit, and just what can I put on to look acceptable and get through becoming a mother again and going back to work.
Correct, almost, but funny, it's always been important to me getting dressed every day. So even in this state, and I was in the beauty industry, so I could not go to work just like acceptably put together. I needed to go to work and look like a beauty executive. So whereas you might think that you need all those clothes to achieve that, all those clothes were working against me in trying to achieve a look of put togetherness every single morning. Right. So I have never been someone, and to a fault, I'm not saying that this is how you should go through life as a young mother. Right. But to a fault, looking put together is like my number one priority. And it was an interesting juxtaposition of where you think that all of the clothes make you very stylish. All of the clothes were making me very stressed out, because they weren't serving me. I didn't have time. I didn't have energy. I was freaking sleep deprived. Sleep deprivation is something that you'll only truly experience for most people as a new mother, and it's real, and it is debilitating, right? You cry at the smallest thing. Do you hear what I'm saying? So you want to eliminate as much excess decision making as you can when you're in that state. And the closet was just like mocking me at this point. And, you're feeling overwhelmed by all of the different aspects of being a mother, but then layering on going back to work and pumping and feeling like you need to be all of these things at once. The hustle is real. I mean, the struggle was real. And that's when I was in this space. Okay, well, we're moving. How am I going to do this? And I found that picture, and I found that article. And like I said, it was just like the angels were singing. And backtrack a little bit again to the career story here, and the, you're not getting any younger. I had always wanted to write a fashion blog, but I didn't, everyone had a fashion blog. I didn't want it to be another blog of a girl in outfits just writing about it. I didn't want it to be about shopping. I didn't know what I wanted it to be, but I knew from my personal creative endeavors that I am the most successful with an idea when it's narrow and very, very deep, not when it's wide and all encompassing. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Oh, for sure. And it's almost like having this realization set you on that path to say, wow, I know the kind of change I need to make in my life. And then I know what I want to do to help people, right?
Absolutely. And it was like that. As soon as I found that article, I'm like, this is what I'm going to write about. So I went to school for writing. I'm a writer. At the bottom of everything else, I'm a fashion girl and I'm a writer. And I just needed my story. And I also knew, like I said earlier, that I also needed to start incubating what my next career transformation was going to look like. And this is probably something that would be valuable to your listeners. When I was pregnant with Ashby, the daughter who I had to get me to this point, it was about 2 to 5 years after the stabilization of income. I was already like deeply dissatisfied with my job. And I knew I wanted the next phase to reveal itself, but I didn't know what it was yet. And that's out of this whole process, that period, you don't realize it when it's happening until it's over, where you incubated the idea. You just have to have faith that it's there and it's incubating. So when I was pregnant with Ashby, I started meditating. I really got into like spirituality. I journaled a lot. I drew a lot. I did a lot of just kind of meditative drawing. I took a lot of walks, and I didn't come up with any answers at that time. But now looking back at it, I realize that my entire pregnancy, and even, when you pump, you have like 20 minutes at a time, 3 times a day, where that's all you do is you're like sitting there and pumping. And I use that time to meditate every day and draw, because, I mean, what else are you going to do? And it was from that process but I didn't realize it, but this was where that idea was born.
That's incredible. And I love that you just explained that process, because a lot of people get frustrated when they're like, I don't know what I want to do. When is it going to come to me? I'm just going to give up. So thank you for being so honest about that.
Absolutely. And and I would ask myself those same questions. And when I look back on those journals, I was asking myself those questions, and I was making lists of, what do I do very well? E-commerce, social media, writing, fashion, resale, like I was making lists of everything that I could do, and it just wasn't glomming together. And I threw a lot of ideas at the wall. Like I tried to do an app to resell baby clothes. I worked on a project to like a rent the runway for baby clothes. I was throwing everything, any kind of creative opportunity that presented itself. I was exploring it, and then it was frustrating because it wasn't gelling and coming together, right? But now that I am where I am, and I can look back and I can see that you'll never know what's happening until it happens, but respect that if it's in your heart, this is an astrological term, if it's in your heart, it's in your chart, and it will reveal itself. Yes. But you do need to quiet your mind as much as that's possible, because that is a feat in and of itself. And then don't be too hard on yourself when it doesn't seem like your mind is very quiet. But you do need to quiet your mind and ask, what is it? And it will reveal itself.
I love that. Thank you for saying that. I think it's so incredible and so helpful for people to know. I want to go back to that moment where you made that decision to change your closet, change your life. A lot of people listening are going to say, how did you do it? So how did you get down to just 40 items? What was that process like?
Okay, so I read everything I could about Capsule Wardrobes, and one particular, one author, she had a blog, and she still does. Courtney Carver had a project that she had launched, I think, a year before. It was called Project 333, and the idea was that you had 33 garments, you wore it for 3 months, and and then you swapped it out for another 33 garments. You didn't shop until the end of the season, and you went to start the process. You go through your whole wardrobe, and it's a very intuitive process. Like the minute you pick up the garment, you know, to borrow a expression from a very, mainstream declutterer right now, Marie Kondo, you know if it sparks joy in a second. Because if you have any hesitation, it goes to the no pile. So I did that, and it took rounds and rounds and rounds and rounds and days. But I eventually reduced this 300 plus, 400 plus garment and accessory wardrobe down to about a total of 75 garments. And from there, I extracted 40 seasonal garments. And I committed that I was going to wear only these 40 garments. So I tweaked it a little bit. 33 all in with accessories was not going to happen with me. And I was like, fine, this is my version of that. My accessories, I don't limit accessories, but I encourage myself and my clients to be mindful. Your accessories for any given seasonal capsule should coordinate with the garments in the capsule. And you can make capsules out of your accessory collection too. You don't have to wear all of your accessories all of the time. So, and as soon as I started that, I started writing about it. I got a Tumblr blog, and I wrote about it on the Tumblr blog for an entire year. What'd you do with all the other stuff, Jen? I shopped those clothes all over Washington, D.C. I went from one consignment store to another consignment store to another consignment store. And then in the end, I was just giving them away to anybody. I did not stop. I did not reconsider. I did not stop to question. I'm like, just get this out of my energy field, all of it. And that took solid 2 months to get rid of all of the clothes. So picking the clothes that I was going to keep, that was the easy part. Unloading the other stuff, the stuff that didn't serve me and didn't give me joy, took a long time. And when all was said and done, I maybe recouped about $2,500, maybe. And the most money I made of all of those clothes were maternity clothes, because there is a market for resale for maternity clothes. But we're talking DVF dresses that I bought right off the floor of Neiman Marcus for $385. I still don't think I still feel like that dress is in a consignment store. When I go in there, I still see it.
Wow.
And so to make the decisions of the things to keep, I thought about my life right now. What does my life look like right now? Manolo Blahniks, camouflage 4-inch Manolo Blahniks are not part of my life right now. I need cute flats, because when you got 2 small kids, you'll wear heels again on the weekend when you go out, maybe once in a while, but this is not a day-to-day look anymore. So I was very mindful. And another thing that I work with my clients, what does your lifestyle look like? What do you do the majority of your days? The majority of your wardrobe should reflect what you do the majority of your time. And at that time, I worked in an office, business casual, and I had children. So I used that to reduce and made sure that I had enough that I can make outfits if I wanted to go out. And, I did a full study on like what ratio, what percent of my every day was spent doing what kind of things. And those 40, 75 total garments, 40 seasonal garments really closely reflected what I'd actually wear on a day-to-day basis. And then I started writing about it. And I wrote about it at first, that first blog, which was Tumblr, which does not allow you for a lot of branding opportunity. It's just really narrative. I'd take a picture of my outfit that day, and I would write about more of the psychology behind a minimalist fashion perspective. It was very narrative. I would present a thesis in the beginning, and then I would present a thesis in the beginning and then relate it to the psychological process of letting go of material items and wrap it up all in about 500 words. And I wrote every day. I did a blog post every single day.
Wow.
And it was really well received. I'd figured it out. Now, It took another 3 years to quit my job from that point, but I knew that this was it. So right now, my content focus for this year, I'm doing something on social media, blogging about it, making live videos about it on Instagram called hashtag is WWIH19, wear what I have. I am not buying anything all year long fashion related. No shoes, no bags, no clothes, no earrings, no Hermes scarves, nothing. To prove that I have enough. Because after 16 seasons of a seasonal capsule wardrobe where I've been refining and refining and refining, I know that I have enough. And now I want to explore the psychology of actually wearing the things that I own and not feeding that hungry little newness monster.
I absolutely love that. And I'm thinking right now, because I don't buy a lot of clothes anymore. I try not to, what my one item would be. And I think that's such a great challenge and something really cool to strive for. And it's something that keeps you thinking when you walk by a store, okay, I'm not going to go in that because I am working for something bigger, which I think is great. I have a personal question for you, and this relates to my shopping problem. I don't buy a lot of different things, but I am such a person who is like, okay, these workout leggings I absolutely adore. Maybe they're from Old Navy and they're $10, but I don't need one pair, I need 3 because I don't want to have to try to ever search for a pair of leggings that fit like these leggings again. So my problem is buying the quantity of those one items. What would you say to a person like me so that I chill out and don't fill my closet with 10 of the same things that I truly don't need?
So anytime that you feel the urge to buy a multiple of something, because yes, you found the right thing, it has the fit, it's got the stretch, it hits all those notes, and you want to buy 3, buy 2.
I love it. I love it so much. That's the best advice and helps someone like me with my compulsive problem of just buying the same thing every time I walk into the same store. So I love it. I have one final question for you. We end all of our interviews this way. Fill in the blank. You're not getting any younger, so
start it. Just start it. Don't quit your job until you have to. Start the side hustle, start the incubation period. As soon as you get that calling, act on it in some way, because it's all about intention. Intention is everything. So just do it and stop worrying. Stop worrying about, do I have the name right? Everybody else is doing this too. Whatever. Everybody's doing the same thing all over the world. They just want it from you. You're the difference.
Amen to that. Jen, you are a rock star. I appreciate every single thing you told our listeners. Please tell them one final thing, where they can find out more about you, Mappcraft, and of course your book.
Right. You can download a free digital copy of my book, Close the Deal, The Guide for Transformative Personal Style, with a foreword by fashion designer Christian Siriano, at tonsofstyle.com. And please check me out and follow my WWIH19 journey on Instagram at Tiny Closet Tons of Style.
Amazing, and we will link to all of that on anyyounger.com. We'll post about it in the Secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group. Jen, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Hey, you. Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.